I think we all can agree one can never have too many spare birthday cards on hand. So for today's video, I decided to stamp a simple one-layer floral birthday card. Now, the design of this card can be adapted to many other occasions as it is not using any birthday-specific imagery, but rather only flowers. A card like this can be a thank you or miss you or a paper hug and many more. Hi everyone, I'm Yana Smakula and I'm hoping you will love this video. If you do, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. Ring the bell too to be notified of every new upload. I started working on my card by stamping a skinny strip sentiment somewhat in the center of my panel in black ink. This message, birthday wishes, come from the Simple Sentiment 2 stamp set by Kathy Zelski for Simon Says Stamp. I stamped it in black ink on white cardstock panel cut to 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches. This is the only black that I will have on this card. The rest is going to be bright, bold, and colorful. Perfect for a birthday card. This is also the only image that I had stamped with the help of my stamping tool. The rest will be stamped using a clear block. I chose to use Misty to stamp a sentiment to be sure that I would stamp it straight and also to have the opportunity to double stamp it if needed. And I did do that to have a darker, blacker impression. Next, I made a mental note to leave the sides of my white panel blank. I did not want to mask anything, as sometimes with masking tape, when you pull it off, it can rip the paper and hence damage your project. So I just envisioned about 1/4 inch border on each side, so 1/4 inch strip being free from any stamping. I also didn't mask the border because I wanted the images to not be chopped off in the middle, if that makes sense. I wanted each stamped image to be fully stamped on the paper. To create the floral pattern or a floral background for this card, I pulled images from the So Loved stamp set by Simon Says Stamp. This is a large 6x8 set that features a solid and a corresponding outline image. And there are several flowers here, several leaves, and leafy branches. I picked a handful of solid images, skipping the outline layers, and started planning their placement on the panel. Like I said, I was mindful of that 1/4 inch border on each side, and as I was stamping these, I made sure to maintain that imaginary border on this card. At first, I had planned to ink up each stamp, each image, with 2 colors of ink, a lighter and a darker, for some shading. But later I abandoned this idea and stamped most of my images in just 1 color of ink. I switched gears a bit and was planning to use my colored pencils here instead of using that second darker ink pad to add shading and some detail to my images. It's very similar to what I had done in my previous video for Simon Says Stamp. It was the video published this fall featuring Stamptember stamp set from W+9. I used rose apple and watermelon ink for the largest flower, but using just rose apple would have been enough. Next, I stamped smaller flowers in Twirling Tutu. This particular ink pad was a little bit on the dry side, so I double stamped the images to have a nicer and even ink coverage. The next color I used was Cloudy Sky and Sea Foam to stamp that large leafy cluster. Many of these images, when stamped without the outline layer, have a more artistic look to them, as if they are hand-painted. They look unfinished in a way and also more appealing. At least they seem more appealing to me on this card. Truth be told, I did not think that this card would turn out nicely in the end. As I started stamping it, I didn't really like the result, and I was tempted to stop a few times and discard the panel and perhaps start over. But I kept stamping just for the fun of it, and the more images I added, the better it looked. I used Catkin. I love this yellow-green color to stamp a lot of the greenery on this panel, and by adding it, I think it had really cheered this card up. Next, I used Hollyhock. It's a very beautiful pink color, one of my favorites. I stamped a bunch of tiny floral clusters, and that's when I realized that I was really starting to love this pattern. The next color I used was Sun-Kissed, a nice bright orange. Picking out the right colors for a busy design like this is key, I think. So it is important to have the right color combination when you start. If you struggle with colors, you can use Simon Says Stamp color coordinates videos in color combinations to help you pick the right colors for your card designs. Next, I used seafoam color again and stamped several darker leaves, filling some of the background in. Now, with these kinds of inks, it's important to remember that they become lighter as the ink dries. So if you've stamped something and it looks too dark, give it a few minutes and let the ink dry. The color will become lighter and possibly exactly what you were expecting it to be. The seafoam leaves looked rather dark here, but they fit perfectly on the finished card once the ink was dry. I also used Rosy Cheeks color instead of the twirling tutu to stamp some additional tiny flowers in pink. When stamping patterns like this, patterns consisting of multiple images and images of various size, it's important to go from large to small. Do not start with a small image because you might not have room to fit the largest one later. Start with the biggest flower and the biggest leaf, and then work your way down to the smaller size images. There's also a little dot stamp in this stamp set, and I took advantage of it by stamping it in several colors of ink, filling the gaps on the card. You can see me hesitate here and try to decide where I need it stamped. You can totally skip adding that dot image. This is the very last step here, but it does help in the end to fill the background and add color to any empty spaces that you might have on the card. My stamping was done on a separate panel instead of a card base, as that's how I prefer to create. Once it was all finished, I adhered it onto A2 white side folding card. To add shading, I used my Polychromos pencils by Faber-Castell and added just a hint of details to some of the stamped images. I used number 123, Fuchsia, number 129, Pink Madder Lake, number 132, Light Flesh, number 131, Medium Flesh, number 108, Dark Medium Yellow, number 111, Cadmium Orange, number 168, Earth Green Yellowish, and finally number 154, Light Cobalt Turquoise. Seems like a lot of colors, but really it was just one color per each ink pad color. Adding this kind of pencil detail can be scary at times, and I was afraid to mess this card up. I really did not want to re-stamp it, but you can always do a test run on a piece of paper before coloring the actual card, and that's what I did here when I was trying and testing some of the colors. Before I finish this video, I wanted to show you a panel that inspired this specific card. I started working on another idea. I didn't like how it was going, but I did like the little leaf and floral clusters and decided to re-stamp this idea using slightly different images, and I'm so glad I did. I hope you'll give this idea a try using these or other stamps from your stash. If you do, remember to share online and tag us on social media. We always love seeing what you guys are making. On the screen, there is a link to a playlist with all of my videos featuring stamps from Simon Says Stamp. Subscribe now not to miss any new card making videos. Thanks for watching. Love you guys. I'll see you next week.